of the first night of our 63rd conference, the presidential address of the inimitable Michael D. Higgins. Michael D.
Dear comrades and friends, I wish to first of all thank the members of the Labour Party for endorsing me as President of the Labour Party again, and may I very sincerely wish all of our candidates in the June election every success, be it in the two by-elections, the European elections, and the very important local elections into cities, towns and county councils. This conference takes place at a time of crisis in economic terms, but also at a time when there is a very welcome evidence of a great desire and willingness to change. And this is reflected in the polls, the high approval ratings of the Labour Party's leader, Eamon Gilmore, and I congratulate him and the party on that. We in Labour must respond with a critique to the times in which we find ourselves, with a critique that is as fearless as it is honest. And it must be resolute and courageous too in setting out the basic elements of the new economy that needs to be built, the new connections between economy and society that are needed, the transparent reforms in governance that are demanded, and the role of the state in a mixed economy and recession. When I say that we need to be fearless, I mean that we have in the first instance to claim the space for a new and different discourse. That discourse must have a content that is practical, of course, as well as inspirational. We cannot talk about the new and the needed alternative in the same language, within the same boundaries of that which has failed and must be discarded. The first courage is to let go of the failure. The present economic morass in which we find ourselves must not be regarded either as the consequences of an accident. Its international dimension was sourced in a version of economics that was carefully propagated by, for example, the Chicago School. It was based on a radical individualism, on unregulated markets, and an extension of financial instruments so as to include virtual products based on speculative estimates of growth and indebtedness. The neoliberal model of this economy drove a version of growth without substance in production and export terms. Among the high priests of this madness was the current European Commissioner, Charlie McCreevy. And as we know, having facilitated speculative alternatives to real growth at home, he later took to lecturing those in Europe who believed in the social economy, such as the Scandinavian countries, that they were backward in not adopting the heady mix of liberalisation, privatisation and speculation in virtual financial instruments, all facilitated by regulation with a light touch that he and his party had adopted for Ireland and that had set it on the course to ruin. Let us then not have any affected amnesia as to whom and what parties have brought us to this point. There is no we that must take on responsibility for neoliberal economics. The parties responsible were Fianna Fáil PD-led governments. For us now to address the way forward then, in economic terms, in such a way as to build social cohesion, we must be clear on what it is that constitutes the project of the left, as the only real alternative to that which has failed with such disastrous social consequences, as so many fine delegates, one after the other, have given you examples. 354,000 people out of work, and the prospect of that figure rising to beyond 500,000, with all the consequences, social and economic, for families and communities. Our project as well, and let's be very clear about this, is not simply the demonstration of political incompetence. That frankly speaks for itself. Neither can it be a resuscitation of that which has collapsed with such disastrous consequences for citizens. We have to state that the neoliberal model of the economy and society has failed, and that a new social model of the economy must be and can be put in its place. This model is simply not more democratic, more inclusive, sustainable and egalitarian and positive. It is also based on better economics. Furthermore, it is just simply a fact in the social sciences that more equal societies with a social economy are healthier, more cohesive and more creative spaces in which people find their lives. The advocates of that which has failed, of course, have not gone away. Indeed, having prescribed a toxic medicine, they now seek a role as undertakers in the media. Refusing to recognize their failed model, they obscure the consequences of their wild, irrational economic assumptions, their lethal policy prescriptions. Their response to the present crisis now, if we relied on them, would be as callously indifferent in its social implications by way of adjustment or response as it was when they were advocating a radical individualism and supporting a trickle-down economics that required the existence of poverty as an incentive. We had a government minister, Michael McDowell, one of the most disgraceful ministers of all time, suggest that poverty was necessary. And he now spends his time in retirement advising Declan Ganley, the most undemocratic influence in Europe. There are exceptions, but there are exceptions, and it is important. There are exceptions within the intellectual community. There are those who write and speak of wealth and inequality, and they must be our allies now and our inspiration at this time of change. Dr. Pádraig Kenna, in his most recent book, quotes a report prepared by Investec Private Bank by DKM Consultants in 2008. Not a left-wing group, I can assure you. It pointed out that 41 billion euro was added to the collective wealth of the richest 450 people in Ireland in the 3 years 2005 to 2008. It spoke of quiet wealth of around 11 billion accrued by those who sold land for property and such infrastructure as roads. There was no limit, of course, to that upon which the Fianna Fáil PD government invited investors to speculate. The need for a home was a part of the market. Health was a part of the market. Education was a part of the market. It did not matter. Dr. Kenna states that housing is now the central repository of personal wealth, with a nominal value that rose from 39.1 billion in 1981, under 40 billion, to 553.5 billion in 2005. He quotes a Bank of Ireland report in 2007, The Wealth of the Nation, which showed that the asset base, that is, gross assets minus residential property, of the top 1% of the population increased from 86 billion in 2005 to 100 billion in 2006. Let me pause as I move on to say then, why then are we not discussing wealth and making the wealthy carry the burden of the economy that they rule? What I have described is written about by some who should know better, even on the left, as the achievement of good times. But good times for whom, one might well ask. We're back to this we again. Of course, most of this artificial growth that I have just described would not have been possible had the Kenny report, with its proposals to control the cost of building land and essential land, which Labour consistently supported and demanded, had it been introduced.